What was your, if you go low, I'll go lower moment? My coworker Veronica made my life hell for 3 years. It started small, moving my lunch to different shelves, forgetting to tell me about meetings, accidentally spilling coffee on my reports. I kept thinking if I stayed professional, she'd get bored and stop. I was wrong. When I got promoted to senior analyst, she snapped. She started spreading rumors that I was sleeping with our manager, Dennis. She'd whisper loudly whenever I walked by, "Some people will do anything for a raise." She even created a fake Instagram account posting photos of Dennis and me at work meetings with suggestive captions. HR did nothing. Without proof of who's behind the account, our hands are tied. The breaking point came during my presentation to secure a $2.3 million client. I'd worked on it for 2 months. As I clicked to my first slide, hardcore pornography filled the screen. The conference room went silent. The client stood up and left without a word. Someone had replaced my file on the shared drive. It traced it to a guest login from the lobby computer. No proof it was Veronica, though she smirked at me all day. That night, I made a decision. If she wanted to play dirty, I'd show her what dirty really looked like. I started documenting everything. Not just what she did to me, but what she did to everyone. Her long lunches that she marked as client meetings. The office supplies she took home. The company credit card charges at Nordstrom she labeled as team building expenses. But that was just the beginning. I discovered Veronica had a side business selling our company's client list to competitors. She'd been doing it for years, using her assistant's login to access the database after hours. The total damage? Around $400,000 in lost contracts. I could have reported it immediately, but where was the poetry in that? Instead, I befriended her assistant, Meredith. Poor thing was miserable. Veronica made her work unpaid overtime, screamed at her daily, and took credit for all her work. Over coffee, Meredith mentioned she had recordings. "For my protection," she said, "in case she tries to fire me unfairly." "How many recordings?" I asked. "About 200 hours worth." We spent the next month building our case. Meredith had emails where Veronica explicitly discussed the client list sales, screenshots of her using racial slurs about our Asian colleagues, videos of her doing cocaine in the bathroom, the crown jewel, a recording of Veronica on the phone with her husband, planning to frame me for embezzlement if I ever challenged her again. She'd already started creating fake invoices with my signature. We were ready to strike when something unexpected happened. Veronica announced her pregnancy at the Monday meeting. Everyone congratulated her. She made a big show of how she'd finally have the family she'd always wanted, how her husband was over the moon. That afternoon, a woman appeared at reception asking for Veronica. She was crying, holding a baby. "Tell her Brad's other wife is here," she said. The entire office watched as Veronica came down, saw the woman, and went pale. The woman, Alyssa, had discovered her husband had been living a double life for 5 years. 2 wives, 2 sets of children, 2 mortgages he couldn't afford. Veronica collapsed, literally fell to her knees in our marble lobby. As security helped her to a chair, Alyssa turned to leave but stopped at my desk. "Thank you for the anonymous tip," she whispered. "The private investigator you recommended found everything." I hadn't sent any tip. I looked at Meredith, who was typing innocently at her desk. Later, she admitted she'd gone ahead without me, found Brad's other Facebook profile, connected with Alyssa, sent her everything. "You were taking too long," Meredith said, "and Veronica deserved worse than just getting fired." But here's the thing. Veronica didn't get fired. She took maternity leave early, claimed emotional distress. The company didn't want a discrimination lawsuit from a pregnant woman whose life had just imploded. She was coming back in 6 months with full pay. That's when I decided if we were going low, we were going to hell. The first thing I did was audit every project Veronica had ever touched. See, while everyone was focused on her personal drama, I'd noticed patterns in her work. Projects she managed always had budget overruns. Vendors she selected always charged 15–20% above market rate. The same 3 companies kept winning bids. I created a spreadsheet. Over 7 years, the excess charges totaled $1.8 million. Then I looked up those 3 companies. They all had the same registered agent, Brad's brother, Keith. The addresses were virtual offices. The websites were templates with stock photos. Veronica hadn't just been selling client lists. She'd been running a full procurement fraud scheme with her husband's family. But I needed more proof, real evidence that would hold up in court, not just in a termination hearing. That's when Meredith introduced me to her roommate, Tamara. Tamara worked at the state attorney's office in the white-collar crime division. "This is RICO territory," Tamara said, looking at my documentation. "But you need financial records, bank statements, proof of kickbacks." "How would I even get those?" Tamara smiled. "You don't. But wronged wives in divorce proceedings? They get everything." 3 days later, I was having lunch with Alyssa. She was still reeling from discovering her husband's double life. But what really infuriated her was the money. "He told me we couldn't afford private school for the kids," she said. "Meanwhile, he bought her a Mercedes for Christmas." "Have your lawyers pulled his financial records yet?" I asked. "Everything. 7 years of bank statements, tax returns, investment accounts. Find anything interesting?" She laughed bitterly. "Besides the secret credit cards and the gambling debts, there are these weird deposits. Every month, $15,000 to $30,000 from companies I've never heard of." I slid her Tamara's business card. "The state attorney might want to see those records." While that investigation started, I focused on protecting myself and Meredith. Veronica might have been on leave, but she had allies in the office. Her best friend Diane from accounting had already started spreading rumors that I'd orchestrated Veronica's downfall out of jealousy. So I got creative. I started a weekly women in business lunch group, invited every female employee except Diane. During our 3rd meeting, I casually mentioned how hard it must be for Diane, being Veronica's only real friend. "What do you mean?" asked Priya from marketing. "Oh, you didn't know? Diane's been covering for Veronica's vendor fraud for years. Signed off on all those inflated invoices. Either she's incompetent or complicit." The room went quiet. Then Rochelle from legal spoke up. "Diane approved a $50,000 payment to a vendor that doesn't exist. I flagged it last year, but she said it was a clerical error. Mine was $30,000, added Trinity from operations. Same excuse. By the end of lunch, we'd identified 12 suspicious transactions Diane had personally approved. That afternoon, Diane was escorted out pending investigation. But Diane didn't go quietly. She sent a group email to the entire company before security could revoke her access. The subject line: "The truth about your whistleblower hero." In it, she claimed I'd been planning Veronica's downfall since day one, that I'd seduced Dennis first, then blamed Veronica when it went sour, that I was the one selling client lists and framing others. She even included Photoshopped screenshots of fake conversations. Most people saw through it immediately, but some didn't. A faction formed, mostly men who'd been passed over for promotions, people who owed Veronica favors, and a few who just enjoyed drama. They started their own whisper campaign, said I was a snake, a manipulator, that I'd destroy anyone who got in my way. One morning, I found my car keyed in the parking garage. "Liar" scratched across the hood. Security footage showed a figure in a hoodie, face obscured, but I recognized the walk. It was Wayne from IT, Veronica's ex-boyfriend from before Brad. He'd been helping her access systems she shouldn't have been able to reach. I didn't report it. Instead, I had Tamara run a background check on Wayne. Turns out he had 2 DUIs and was 1 violation away from losing his license. I also discovered he'd been using company computers to mine cryptocurrency after hours, running up our electricity bill by $30,000 over 2 years. I compiled the evidence and left it in an anonymous envelope on Bethany Chen's desk when she started as our new CEO. Wayne was gone by the end of the week, arrested for theft of company resources. A month into Veronica's leave, her husband Brad showed up at the office. He looked haggard, unshaved, wearing a wrinkled suit. He cornered me by the elevators. "You destroyed my family," he hissed. "You destroyed your family when you married 2 women," I replied calmly. "Veronica's having complications because of the stress. If she loses this baby, then maybe she'll understand how Alyssa felt when she lost her marriage." He grabbed my arm, hard enough to bruise. That's when Gerald from security appeared, all 6'4" of him. "Sir, you need to leave, now." Brad let go but leaned in close. "This isn't over." "You're right," I said. "The FBI raid isn't scheduled until next week." His face went white. He stumbled backward, then practically ran to the exit. I didn't actually know about any FBI raid, but guilty people fill in their own blanks. Sure enough, Brad fled the state that night, tried to empty the bank accounts, but Alyssa's lawyer had already frozen them. He made it as far as Miami before the federal marshals picked him up at the airport with a one-way ticket to Costa Rica. The investigation into Brad revealed more than anyone expected. He hadn't just been running shell companies with Keith. He had connections to a money laundering operation that went through 3 states. The kickbacks from Veronica's vendor fraud? They were being washed through a casino in Atlantic City, then invested in real estate under false names. The FBI found 17 properties purchased with stolen funds. Total value, $4.2 million. All bought in the last 3 years while Brad was telling both wives they couldn't afford vacations. But the most damaging discovery was Brad's backup drive. He was paranoid about Keith betraying him, so he'd recorded all their conversations, including ones where Veronica explicitly planned which employees to target for termination so they could replace them with conspirators. My name was at the top of the list. "She's too smart," Veronica's voice said clearly on one recording. "We need her gone before she figures out the procurement angle. I'll start with sexual harassment rumors, escalate to performance issues, then plant evidence of embezzlement. 6 months tops." The recording was dated 2 weeks before my promotion. She'd been planning my destruction for months. The real FBI raid happened 2 weeks later, but it wasn't at Brad's house. It was at our office. Turns out, Veronica's fraud went deeper than anyone imagined. She wasn't just working with her husband's family. The CEO's brother-in-law, Garrett, was in on it. He'd been steering contracts to shell companies for a decade. Veronica was just middle management in a massive corruption scheme. They seized everything: computers, files, even the coffee machine for some reason. The entire company was shut down for a week, while forensic accountants combed through records. During that week, I got a call from a reporter at the Wall Street Journal. Someone had leaked the story to them. The sex scandals, the fraud, the drug connections, everything. They wanted my comment as the whistleblower. I declined to comment officially. But off the record, I gave them everything: names, dates, amounts. The recording of Veronica planning to frame me. The evidence of Dennis's incompetence. Diane's role in the cover-up. The story ran on the front page of the business section. How a junior analyst exposed a $50 million corporate fraud ring. By the time we were allowed back in the office, half the executive team was gone, including Dennis, our manager. Not because he was involved in the fraud. He was just spectacularly incompetent. He'd signed off on budgets without reading them, approved vendors without verification. The board fired him for gross negligence. But Dennis's termination revealed something else. It found a hidden folder on his computer during the mandatory audit. It contained photos. Hundreds of photos of female employees taken without their knowledge. Upskirt shots in the elevator. Zoom-ins on chests during presentations. A whole subcategory dedicated to the summer interns, including my 19-year-old cousin who'd worked there the previous summer. Dennis wasn't just incompetent. He was a predator. His replacement was Bethany Chen, a former federal prosecutor who'd specialized in corporate corruption. Her first day, she called an all-hands meeting. "I've reviewed the files," she said. "I know who reported what, who stayed silent, who actively participated. There will be consequences for all 3 categories." She made eye contact with me. "Some of you showed exceptional courage in bringing this to light. You'll be rewarded accordingly." My promotion to Director of Compliance came with a 70% raise and a $50,000 whistleblower bonus. Meredith became Senior Administrative Manager with her own team, but Veronica still had 3 months of maternity leave. During those 3 months, the investigation expanded. The state attorney's office connected her vendor fraud to a larger network operating across 6 companies. Her name appeared in testimony. Her photo was in the news. She tried to negotiate a plea deal, but there was too much evidence. The cocaine videos Meredith had recorded? Turns out she wasn't just using, she was selling. Small amounts to select coworkers, but still dealing. The bathroom stall where she'd been recorded? They found her stash hidden behind a loose tile. 8 balls of cocaine, 50 Adderall pills she'd been selling to overworked analysts, and a dozen vials of steroids she was supplying to guys in sales. The DEA got involved. Suddenly, this wasn't just white-collar crime. This was drug trafficking in a federal building. Our office was in a complex that housed several government contractors. That made it a federal crime with mandatory minimums. But even that wasn't the worst part for Veronica. Remember those racial slurs Meredith had recorded? One of the people Veronica had insulted was Judge Harrison's daughter, who'd interned with us 2 years ago. Veronica had called her a diversity hire who couldn't analyze her way out of a paper bag, and said much worse things I won't repeat. Judge Harrison would be presiding over Veronica's trial. Veronica's lawyer immediately filed for a different judge, citing potential bias. The motion was denied. Judge Harrison stated he could remain impartial, despite personal connections to the case. 2 months into her leave, Veronica called me. It was 2 a.m. "Please," she sobbed. "I need this job. Brad's gone. His debts are all in my name too. If I don't have income, I'll lose everything." "You should have thought about that before you destroyed my presentation." "That wasn't me. It was Diane. She thought it would be funny. But you knew about it." Silence. "You knew, and you let it happen." "I was jealous," she admitted. "You're younger, smarter, everyone likes you. Dennis was always praising your work. I wanted you to fail just once." "Well, congratulations. You got your wish." "I did fail. That client went to our competitor. The company lost millions." "I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. Please, I have a baby coming. I need health insurance." "Actually," I said, "you have 2 babies coming." "What?" "Brad's other wife is pregnant too. Due 3 weeks after you." "Funny how that worked out." She went quiet for a long moment, then her voice changed, dropped the sob story act. "You think you've won," she said coldly, "but I know things. About you, about your family, that cousin of yours who interned here. I know what she did with Dennis. I have photos." My blood ran cold. "You're lying." "Am I?" "Check your email." I did. There was a photo of my cousin at the company party, clearly drunk, with Dennis's arm around her. Nothing explicitly incriminating, but suggestive enough to damage her reputation. "That's just the preview," Veronica continued. "I have video from Dennis's office. Your sweet little cousin earning her recommendation letter the hard way. She would never. Doesn't matter what really happened, only what it looks like. Drop the investigation, or this goes viral." I hung up and immediately called my cousin, Brianna. She was in her junior year at college, applying to law schools. "Did Dennis ever—" I couldn't finish the sentence. She broke down crying. "He said if I didn't, he'd blacklist me. Make sure I never got hired anywhere." I was so scared. I didn't know what to do. "Did you report it?" "To who?" "HR was his drinking buddy. You saw how they protected each other." "Veronica has video." "What?" "No, that's impossible. It only happened once, in his office after—" She stopped. "Oh God, he recorded it?" The next morning I called Tamara. "Veronica's trying to blackmail me with revenge porn of my cousin." "That's a federal crime," Tamara said immediately. "And if Dennis recorded it without consent, that's another crime. If your cousin was drunk, that's a third." "How old was she?" 19. "And Dennis was?" 43. Jesus Christ. Okay, here's what we're going to do. The plan was simple. I'd arrange another call with Veronica, get her to admit to the blackmail on recording. Meanwhile, Tamara would get a warrant for Dennis's home and office electronics. But Veronica was smarter than that. When I called her back, she spoke in code. "I hope your cousin's law school applications go well," she said sweetly. "It would be a shame if certain parties saw documentation of her extracurricular activities." "What do you want?" "You know what I want. Make this all go away." "I can't do that. The FBI is involved now." "Then you better find a way, or sweet little Brianna becomes internet famous." I wanted to reach through the phone and strangle her. Instead, I said, "Give me 48 hours. During those 48 hours, a lot happened. First, the FBI raided Dennis's house. They found his collection, over 10,000 files, videos and photos of at least 40 women, including 6 minors who'd been part of a high school mentorship program. The FBI tech specialist called it one of the largest voyeur collections they'd seen from a corporate environment. Dennis had installed hidden cameras throughout his office. Every meeting, every performance review, every closed-door conversation had been recorded, including his encounters with my cousin and 3 other interns over the years. But here's where it gets interesting. Dennis was paranoid about getting caught, so he'd installed cameras to watch his cameras. Meta surveillance. Those recordings showed Veronica entering his office after hours with a USB drive. She'd copied specific videos, the ones with my cousin and 2 other women who'd later opposed her in meetings. She'd been building a blackmail library. The FBI arrested Dennis at his new job. His laptop was open to an encrypted folder labeled Insurance. Inside were recordings of his conversations with Garrett, the CEO's brother-in-law. They'd been running their own side operation, selling access to government contracts using Dennis's connections from his previous job at the Department of Defense. Dennis, trying to save himself, immediately flipped. He gave up everything, including the fact that Veronica had been the one to suggest recording the women in the first place. She said it would be useful to have leverage, Dennis told investigators, said we could control anyone who tried to stop us. The next morning, 3 days before her maternity leave ended, Veronica was arrested at her OB-GYN appointment. They waited until she was in the waiting room, surrounded by other pregnant women, to minimize flight risk. She was charged with 47 counts of fraud, conspiracy, money laundering, drug distribution, and now extortion and distribution of non-consensual pornography. The cocaine thing really screwed her. What might have been 5-10 years became 25-30. But here's where the story gets interesting. During her trial, Veronica's lawyer played a sympathy card. Poor pregnant woman, betrayed by her husband, manipulated by criminals, trying to provide for her baby. It might have worked. except for one thing. The baby wasn't Brad's. The paternity test, ordered as part of the divorce proceedings, showed the father was Dennis, our former manager, the one who'd been fired for incompetence. Remember those rumors Veronica spread about me sleeping with Dennis? Classic projection. Dennis had been having an affair with Veronica for 3 years. He'd been approving her fraudulent budgets because she was blackmailing him with recordings of their encounters in his office, recordings that explicitly discussed him fast-tracking her promotions in exchange for continued favors. But there was another layer. Veronica hadn't just been blackmailing Dennis. She'd been using him to record other women, then using those recordings to blackmail them too. A pyramid scheme of sexual exploitation. One of those women was Patricia, our former head of internal audit. She'd discovered discrepancies in Veronica's expense reports 3 years ago. Before she could report it, Veronica showed her a video of Patricia with Dennis at the Christmas party. Patricia had been drunk, recently divorced, vulnerable. The video made it look consensual, but Patricia had no memory of it happening. Patricia quit the next day, moved to another state, but when she heard about the investigation, she came forward. "I've been in therapy for 3 years," she told the court. "I attempted suicide twice because of what they did to me." Then came Natalie from product development. She'd opposed Veronica's vendor selection in a meeting. 2 days later, Veronica threatened to send an edited video to Natalie's husband, made it look like she was having an affair with Dennis when really she'd just been fixing her skirt after standing up from a chair. The angle, the editing, it was crafted to destroy her marriage. 7 women total came forward during the trial, each with a similar story. Each had opposed Veronica in some way. Each had been threatened with manufactured evidence of sexual impropriety. Dennis was charged with 180 counts of voyeurism, sexual coercion, and creation of child pornography for the videos of the minor mentees. He got 45 years. He'll die in prison. The trial was a sensation. Every day brought new revelations. Veronica hadn't just been running fraud. She'd been collecting blackmail on half the company. She had photos of the CFO at a strip club using the company credit card, videos of the head of HR doing cocaine with Diane, recordings of board members discussing illegal stock trades. She'd been planning to take over the entire company through extortion. The prosecutor called me as a witness. For 3 days, I testified about everything I'd discovered. The defense attorney tried to paint me as vindictive, jealous, conniving. "Isn't it true you orchestrated this entire investigation out of spite?" he asked. "No," I replied. "I orchestrated it out of self-preservation. Veronica was planning to frame me for embezzlement. I have the recording." The courtroom gasped when they played Veronica's call with Brad, discussing how they'd doctor invoices with my signature. "She drew first blood," I said, looking directly at Veronica. "I just made sure she bled out." The prosecutor then asked me about my cousin. "How did you feel when you learned what Dennis had done to her?" "Homicidal," I said honestly. But then I realized prison would be worse than death for him. A former DOD contractor who secretly recorded minors? He won't last long. "Objection!" Veronica's lawyer shouted. "The witness is speculating about prison conditions." "Sustained," Judge Harrison said, but he was clearly disgusted by what he'd heard. During closing arguments, the prosecutor played a montage of Veronica's recordings, her laughing about destroying that bitch, me, her calling her assistant too stupid to realize what's happening, her telling Brad that prison was for peasants who get caught. The jury deliberated for 2 hours, guilty on all counts. Judge Harrison, during sentencing, didn't hide his contempt. "Ms. Madison," he said to Veronica, "you represent the worst kind of corporate criminal. You didn't just steal money. You stole dignity, safety, and peace of mind from dozens of people. You weaponized the most intimate violations for profit and power. You created a culture of fear and exploitation that destroyed lives." He paused, looking at the gallery where many of Veronica's victims sat. "Your own recordings show you took pleasure in causing pain. You called your victims weak, stupid, pathetic. Well, Ms. Madison, they're here today, strong and united, having brought you to justice. The only pathetic person in this courtroom is you." He gave her 30 years, with possibility of parole in 20. But with federal charges and state charges to run consecutively, she won't be eligible for release until she's 67. As they led her away, Veronica looked at me one last time. "I hope you're happy," she said. "I'm not," I replied honestly, "but I'm free." The aftermath was surreal. The company had to rebuild from scratch. Bethany Chen became CEO and cleaned house. Anyone who'd known about the corruption and stayed silent was terminated. The company implemented the strictest compliance protocols in the industry. Every transaction required multiple approvals. Every vendor went through extensive vetting. Every employee underwent background checks annually. I was put in charge of the new ethics department. My first act was establishing an anonymous whistleblower program with guaranteed protection and rewards for reporting corruption. The program was more successful than anyone anticipated. In the first month alone, we received 47 reports. Most were minor: expense report padding, extended lunch breaks, personal use of company resources. But 3 were serious. The first involved a manager in Phoenix who was forcing his team to work off the clock, saving the company overtime while exhausting his employees. He'd been doing it for 5 years, stealing approximately 10,000 hours of wages from his team. The second was a recruitment scandal. Our head of HR in the Dallas office was selling job placements. Want to skip the interview process? $5,000. Want a guaranteed promotion within a year? $10,000. She'd placed 23 unqualified people in critical positions, including one who'd caused a system failure that cost us $2 million. The third was the worst. Our facilities manager had been ignoring safety violations in exchange for kickbacks from the building owner. The violations included exposed asbestos, faulty fire exits, and structural damage that made the building a death trap. We evacuated immediately and found asbestos levels 50 times the safe limit. Half our staff had been exposed for years. Each investigation led to more discoveries. The Phoenix manager was also sexually harassing his team, using overtime as leverage. The Dallas HR head was connected to a larger network selling positions across multiple companies. The facilities manager had done the same thing at 3 previous companies, leaving a trail of sick employees who developed respiratory problems. Bethany Chen gave me full authority to clean house. In 6 months, we terminated 73 employees for various violations. Another 40 resigned when they realized they were under investigation, but we also implemented reforms. Mandatory ethics training that actually meant something, using real cases from our company, including Veronica's. Rotation of audit responsibilities, so no one person could control oversight. A buddy system for large transactions where 2 unrelated employees had to sign off. Most importantly, we created a victims fund, using the restitution money from Veronica, Dennis, and the others. We set up a program to help employees who'd been harmed. Therapy for those who'd been recorded. Legal assistance for those who'd been blackmailed. Financial compensation for those who'd lost promotions or raises due to the corruption. My cousin Brianna was our first beneficiary. We paid for her therapy, her law school tuition, and hired the best lawyer in the state to ensure all recordings of her were destroyed and that she could sue Dennis's estate. She graduated summa cum laude and now works for the DOJ prosecuting corporate crime. "You saved my life," she told me at her graduation. When Veronica threatened to release that video, I was ready to give up everything. Drop out, disappear, maybe worse. You fighting back gave me hope. Meredith became my deputy director. Together, we built a system that made fraud nearly impossible. But we also built something else, a culture where people felt safe reporting problems. One day, a young analyst named Jerome came to my office. He was shaking. "I think my manager is doing something illegal," he said, "but I'm scared." The last person who reported him got fired for performance issues a week later. "Who's your manager?" I asked. "Kevin Hartwell." I knew Kevin. Smooth talker, great numbers, recently promoted, also Veronica's former protege. "Tell me everything," I said. Kevin was running a smaller version of Veronica's scheme, inflating invoices, selecting preferred vendors, skimming the difference. He'd learned from the master but thought he was being smarter about it. Smaller amounts spread across more transactions, using cryptocurrencies to hide the money flow. But Jerome had noticed patterns. Vendors that only existed on paper, invoices that didn't match delivered goods, payments routed through unnecessary intermediaries. "How much?" I asked. "About $300,000 so far, but he's accelerating." We investigated quietly for 2 weeks. Kevin had been careful, but not careful enough. He'd used his company laptop to access his cryptocurrency wallet. IT recovered the connection logs. The wallet contained exactly the amount missing from the inflated invoices. But then we found something else. Kevin wasn't working alone. He had a network of 5 other Veronica proteges across different departments. They called themselves the Legacy, continuing Veronica's work, but smarter. They communicated through a gaming platform, thinking it was secure. It wasn't. Our new security system flagged unusual network traffic and traced it back to them. Their conversations were damning. "Veronica was too greedy," Kevin wrote. "Too obvious. We keep it under 2% and no one notices. The new compliance bitch thinks she's so smart," wrote Candace from procurement, "but she's focused on the big fish. We're the minnows. Just 6 more months and we'll have enough to disappear," added Roberto from finance. They'd stolen $1.7 million collectively and planned to frame Jerome for it when they left. I brought it to Bethany immediately. "How do you want to handle this?" she asked. "Publicly," I said. "Make an example of them." The next Monday, during the all-hands meeting, Bethany announced a surprise audit. As she spoke, security officers entered and stood by the exits. "We've discovered another corruption ring," she said. Learning nothing from their mentor's fate, 6 employees thought they could continue her legacy. She named them. The room gasped. These were rising stars, well-liked, seemingly above suspicion. "They called themselves the Legacy," Bethany continued. "Well, here's their legacy: criminal prosecution, industry blacklisting, and prison time." Security escorted them out as everyone watched. Kevin tried to maintain his composure, but Candace was crying. Roberto threw up in a trash can. Their trials were swift. Without Veronica's resources or connections, they had no defense. Each got 5-10 years and had to pay full restitution. But the real vindication came a year later. Alyssa, Brad's legitimate wife, reached out to me. She wanted to thank me for exposing the truth. She'd gotten full custody of their kids, the house, and most of the assets that weren't seized. She'd also started a support group for women who'd been deceived by partners living double lives. "You saved me years of lies," she said. "My kids would have grown up thinking their father's behavior was normal." She invited me to speak at her support group. I told my story, not just about Veronica, but about choosing to fight back instead of giving up, about going lower when someone tries to push you down. "The high road is a luxury for people who aren't being actively destroyed," I said. "Sometimes you have to get dirty to get clean." One woman raised her hand. "Don't you worry about becoming like them? Like Veronica?" I thought about it. Veronica destroyed people for fun, for profit, for power. I destroyed Veronica for survival. There's a difference between being a predator and being prey that fights back. After the meeting, a young woman approached me. She looked familiar. "I'm Christina," she said. "Veronica's sister." I tensed, ready for confrontation. "I wanted to thank you," she continued. "My family always knew something was off with Veronica, but we could never prove it. She destroyed our mother's credit, stole our grandmother's inheritance, got our brother fired from 3 jobs. You did what we couldn't." She handed me an envelope. "This is from our grandmother. She wanted you to have it." Inside was a check for $10,000 and a note for standing up to my granddaughter when her own family couldn't. I donated the money to Alyssa's support group. 3 years have passed since Veronica went to prison. The company is thriving under Bethany's leadership. We've won awards for corporate transparency and ethical business practices. Our stock price has tripled, but the story doesn't end there. Last year, I got a call from a federal prosecutor in New York. They were investigating a massive corporate fraud scheme, dozens of companies, billions of dollars, connections to organized crime. We keep seeing the same name in recovered documents, he said. Someone taught these people how to run procurement fraud and sexual blackmail operations. Veronica, I said. She was running seminars from prison, using her lawyer to pass information. We think she trained over 50 people before we caught on. They needed someone who understood her methods to help unravel the network. I spent 6 months consulting for the DOJ, analyzing patterns, identifying tells, teaching investigators how to spot Veronica-style fraud. We identified 37 active operations across the country, all using her playbook: infiltrate through charm and false competence, identify and compromise key personnel, gather blackmail material via sexual exploitation, create shell companies for procurement fraud, build protection through mutual culpability, destroy anyone who asks questions. The investigation led to 200 arrests and recovered $400 million. They called it Operation Legacy, a final insult to Veronica and her disciples. During the investigation, I learned something disturbing. Veronica had been keeping journals in prison, detailed accounts of her crimes, her methods, her philosophy. She was writing a book, Corporate Conquest, a guide to taking everything. Her lawyer had been shopping it to publishers as a cautionary tale, but really it was an instruction manual for corporate predators. 3 publishers were interested, seeing dollar signs in the controversy. I couldn't let that happen. I contacted every one of Veronica's victims. We organized, pooled resources, and hired a law firm. We threatened lawsuits against any publisher who touched the manuscript. We pointed out that profiting from crimes, especially ones involving sexual exploitation, could make them accessories after the fact. All 3 publishers withdrew their interest. But Veronica found another way. She started a prison blog, dictating posts to a supporter on the outside. She positioned herself as a victim of corporate sexism, a woman punished for being ambitious. She gained followers, angry people who saw her as a hero fighting the system. I created my own blog in response. For every post she made, I published court documents, recordings, victim testimonies. I showed the real Veronica, not the victim she pretended to be, but the predator she was. The war of words lasted 6 months. Then one of her victims, Patricia, the former head of internal audit, did something brilliant. She sued Veronica for intentional infliction of emotional distress. The case was solid, the damage documented. The court ordered Veronica to pay $2 million in damages. Since Veronica had no money, the court ordered any future earnings, including book deals, speaking fees, or blog monetization, to go to Patricia first, then to the other victims in order of their lawsuits. Veronica would never profit from her crimes, but she had one more card to play. From prison, she reached out to a documentary filmmaker known for sympathetic portrayals of convicted women. She promised exclusive interviews, access to her journals, the real story of her downfall. The filmmaker, Desiree Blackwood, contacted me for comment. I agreed to meet her. Veronica says you orchestrated everything, Desiree said, that you were the real criminal who framed her. I laughed. Did she mention the recordings of her planning to frame me? The cocaine dealing? The sexual blackmail? She says those were taken out of context or fabricated. I pulled out my laptop and played Desiree the full recordings. 2 hours of Veronica describing, in detail, how she destroyed people for fun, how she picked victims based on vulnerability, how she got sexual pleasure from watching people cry. Desiree went pale. This isn't what she told me. Veronica is a sociopath, I explained. She mirrors what people want to see. For you, she's playing the wronged woman, because that fits your brand. But she's a predator, and you're just her latest mark. Desiree killed the documentary. Instead, she made one about Veronica's victims, called The Legacy of Silence. It won 3 awards and donated all profits to corporate whistleblower organizations. I still work at the company, now as Executive Vice President of Compliance and Ethics. My salary is 7 times what it was when Veronica was making my life hell. But more importantly, I've helped create systems now used by dozens of companies to prevent Veronica's from taking root. Every month, I get a notification that money has been deposited into a special account. It's restitution from Veronica, Diane, Keith, Brad, Dennis, and all the others, ordered to pay back everything they stole. The court allocated 30% to victims, including me. By the time Veronica gets out of prison, she'll have paid me $400,000. I don't spend it. I invested in a fund for whistleblowers who lose their jobs for reporting corruption. We've helped 312 people so far. Each one is a victory against the Veronicas of the world. Last month, I got a letter from federal prison, from Veronica. She wanted to apologize, claimed she'd found religion, was getting therapy, understood the harm she'd caused. At the bottom, she wrote, "I know you'll never forgive me, but I need you to know. You won. You broke me completely. Are you satisfied?" I wrote back one sentence. "I'm not interested in your satisfaction or mine. I'm interested in justice." She wrote again, this time angrier. "You destroyed everything. My marriage, my career, my future. You're worse than I ever was." This time I wrote a longer response. "You destroyed your marriage when you cheated with Dennis and helped Brad commit bigamy. You destroyed your career when you chose fraud over competence. You destroyed your future when you decided to be a predator instead of a professional. I didn't do anything to you. I just held up a mirror and let everyone see what you really were. The destruction was all your own making." She didn't write again for 6 months. Then I got a final letter. "I'm getting out in 17 years. I'll be old, broke, and alone. You took everything from me, but I learned something from you. How to go lower than anyone expects. When I get out, I'm coming for you." I forwarded the letter to the FBI, the prison warden, and the parole board. Threatening a witness is a federal crime that adds 5 years to a sentence and eliminates parole eligibility. Veronica won't be getting out in 17 years anymore. She'll serve the full 30, maybe more if she keeps making threats. People sometimes ask if I regret going so low, if I feel guilty about destroying so many lives. I tell them about the $400,000 in stolen contracts that hurt legitimate businesses, the employees who were terrorized into silence, the young women like Meredith who were abused daily, the investors who were defrauded, the families destroyed by lies and corruption, my cousin who almost gave up her dreams because of what Dennis did to her. Then I ask them, if someone was destroying innocent people and you could stop them, how low would you go? Most people say they'd take the high road, report it to authorities, trust the system. But the system protected Veronica for 7 years. The system allowed her to destroy careers, steal millions, and plan to frame me for crimes. The system would have let her continue if I hadn't gone lower than she ever expected. Sometimes the high road leads nowhere. Sometimes you have to take the low road to get to justice. And sometimes, when someone forces you to go low, the only response is to go so low you come out the other side. That's what Veronica never understood. She thought going low meant being cruel, vindictive, petty. But true low means being strategic, patient, thorough. It means using their own weapons against them. It means making sure that when they fall, they never get up again. I learned something else from this experience. Every corrupt person thinks they're the only one willing to break rules. They assume everyone else will follow protocols, stay professional, take the abuse. They count on their victims being too scared, too noble, or too naive to fight back at their level. That's their weakness. They never expect someone to go lower. Now I teach a course at the local business school. Ethics in practice. When fighting fair means losing. It's controversial. Some professors think I'm teaching students to be ruthless. Maybe I am. But I'm also teaching them that bullies expect victims, not opponents. That corrupt people depend on good people staying good. That sometimes the most ethical thing you can do is destroy someone who's destroying others. My most popular lecture is called The Veronica Principle. It has 3 rules. Document everything, even when you don't think you'll need it. Never fight alone. Find others who've been hurt. When someone shows you they'll go low, believe them and go lower. Students always ask, where's the line? How do you know when you've gone too far? I tell them about the moment Keith was arrested with the hit contract. How I felt nothing. Not satisfaction, not regret, just emptiness. How I realized I'd become someone capable of destroying another person completely. The line, I tell them, is when you stop asking where it is. Then a student usually asks, would you do it again? I think about Veronica in prison, Brad in federal lockup, Keith serving 35 years, Dennis registered as a sex offender, beaten so badly in prison he'll never walk properly again, Diane, who lost everything and now works at a gas station in Manitoba, the 200 people arrested in Operation Legacy, the companies that collapsed, the families destroyed. I think about Meredith, running her own department, Alyssa, free from her husband's lies, Brianna, prosecuting corporate criminals at the DOJ, the 312 whistleblowers our fund has helped, the company that's now a model for ethical business. Yes, I answer, but faster and harder. Because here's the truth about going low. Once you've been there, you understand that sometimes it's not about taking the high road or the low road. Sometimes it's about burning the whole road down and building a new one. Veronica taught me that. In trying to destroy me, she gave me the tools to destroy her. In pushing me to go low, she taught me how to go lower. She created her own destroyer. Last week, I got a call from Bethany Chen. There was another company interested in hiring me as CEO to clean up their corruption problems. The salary was double what I'm making now. You'd have full authority to investigate and terminate anyone, she said. They need someone who isn't afraid to go low. I thought about it for 3 days. Then I accepted. My first day is next month. I've already started researching the employees. 3 executives have suspicious vendor relationships. The CFO's expenses don't add up. The head of sales has been meeting with competitors. They don't know I'm coming. They don't know what I'm capable of. They don't know how low I'm willing to go. But they will, because Veronica taught me well. When someone goes low, you don't go high. You go lower. You go so low they never see you coming. And then you bury them there. The new company is 3 times the size of my current one. The corruption is deeper, more entrenched. They've had whistleblowers before. 2 ended up dead in accidents. 1 disappeared entirely. 3 more are in psychiatric facilities after breakdowns. They think they're untouchable. They're wrong. I've assembled a team. Meredith is coming with me as COO. Brianna is taking a leave from the DOJ to be our legal counsel. Tamara is retiring from the state attorney's office to head our investigations. We've recruited forensic accountants, former FBI agents, even a reformed hacker who spent 5 years in federal prison for exposing government corruption. We call ourselves the Cleaners. Ironic, given that was the name of Keith's fake hitman. Our first target is the current CEO, Jonathan Blackstone. He's been running the company like a personal kingdom for 15 years. Sexual harassment settlements buried in NDAs, whistleblowers destroyed through lawsuits, competitors sabotaged through corporate espionage. He has no idea what's coming, but I do, because Veronica taught me everything I needed to know about destroying predators. And Jonathan Blackstone? He's about to learn what going low really means. The war starts next month. And this time, I'm not waiting for them to strike first. This time, I'm going lower from day 1.